Hey, it's Illy. Welcome back to another video, or hello if you are new. Today we are here with episode 10, and I'm actually doing some cool things in this episode. I'm gonna start to make my zoo actually look like a real zoo. It's only taken me 10 episodes, and I don't remember what time period this footage is from, but it's been a number of months, I think, at least 2 months into my progress of this zoo, that I start, actually fleshing out the areas that were previously just skeleton framing. So, I worked on it a little bit in another episode, but I actually go ahead and finish the Flamingo Bar and Grill restaurant. So that's done, and you guys will see that at the end of this episode. And also, I work on an outdoor seating area, which it probably could be like overflow seating for the restaurant, but it's practically in game, it's just picnic benches, and I don't know if the guests are actually going to use them, because guests are weird. Like, they don't like go out of their way to interact with things in the zoo. So like, if you have like toys, like that kid zone room that I put in the entrance of the zoo, I don't know if the kids are actually gonna go in there. I don't know if the guests are actually gonna go into that room, because it's like not directly on the way to the flamingos. It's just a tiny deviant off of it, and so I don't think they're actually gonna walk over there. The guest AI, even still, is not like fantastic in terms of them actually using things. I'm hoping they will use these benches though, because I have the vending machines, and so hopefully they, go towards the vending machines, they get a snack, and then they sit down at the picnic benches and hang out in this little courtyard area that is just before the deer habitat, which you can see in the background there. And this habitat is so big that I just have its own zookeeper hut and staff room right there, so that the zookeepers who work there, because they're going to spend so much time, I'm not even kidding, it's so big, so much time going from the zookeeper entrance to the other side of the habitat. And luckily it's open. They don't necessarily have to go through just the zookeeper habitat. They can actually go through the guest gate as well, but it doesn't trigger them to do anything if they go through the guest gates. So, they kind of have to enter from the zookeeper entrance to actually do anything. Though I'm not 100% sure. They might be able to route out of the guest gate if another hut is closer. And there is another one. There's a lot of zookeeper huts in this beginning area, because I sort of put them in abundance early on, and then I don't know. I'm gonna be honest, I don't do a lot of actual playing in this game, so for the most part, I have like a general sense, but like I actually don't really know how close the zookeeper hut should be, or the food and drink. Like, I have played the game, obviously. I just don't spend a lot of my time. Of my 2,500 hours in the game, I would say like maybe 100 of them are actually playing a zoo. Not in the challenge mode. I've never even opened that. There's an achievement on Steam that I'm pretty sure it's still, when I open the game, says first steps and tries to get me to do the first scenario. I have so many hours in the game, and it, as far as the game thinks, I've never played before. I have played, but what I mean to say is I haven't really played all that often. And so it's not sort of ingrained in my mind, and nor do I actually care that much how efficient the zoo is when it's running, because that's not what I'm doing most of the time. So, you know, I don't just, you know, put one keeper hut at the beginning and call it good. I do actually try to make it an efficient zoo. But if it's slightly inefficient, I don't really care. If the things are like, if one area doesn't have enough drinks for the guests, I don't care. They can walk somewhere else and get their drink, because I'm not ruining my aesthetic to put a little... You guys have not quite seen how far I go with all the stands. I mean, I already did the coffee stand, and that was a pretty big deal. So yeah. I can't just like put the facility down and just even put like 4 walls and a roof on it. It would look horrible. I have to spend at least an hour decorating it. Oh, I left this footage in. That was my mistake. It's too late now because I'm doing the voiceover, but I delete all this later. So I leave it for a while though. I think that's why I left it in. I think I actually edited this footage before I deleted this thing that I did. It was supposed to be a bench, and like, it's not awful. I just didn't love it, so I ended up getting rid of it. I think it's just plain now. I don't know. It's an area I might actually still have to work on, like, as far as details go. There's some areas of, like, walls and stuff that I was like, oh, I'll deal with it later. So, right now I'm just doing my final framing of this outdoor area, and then I think I also work on the staff area in this episode. Maybe later. For the most part, though, I'm just gonna finish the interior of... Oh, this is when I'm gonna do the neon sign. We've been talking it up for ages, and I forgot it was in this episode. This text is too big. This is the moments when I wish we were having a Planet Zoo 2. I think for the most part, I'm not ready for a Planet Zoo 2, but when I'm doing this text stuff, which was before Planet Coaster 2 came out, when I actually built this, but looking at it now and knowing what's possible in Planet Coaster 2 with the scaling and the pathing system, like, some of these issues that I'm having such a hard time with are not issues in Planet Coaster 2. This text being too big, I just have to deal with it, because there's nothing smaller. But in Planet Coaster 2, I could just make it slightly smaller. I can make it the perfect size, and it's not an issue. And that is just so convenient. Like, I'm just worried about everything else in this game being too... Planet Zoo 2 is just gonna have to be like a very, very intense game. I know people are having trouble with Planet Coaster 2 and their computers, but this one, like, Planet Zoo 2, I feel like with what they want to do with the game, which is obviously speculation, but like, they've gotta want to add birds, flying birds. Eagles are such a huge staple in American zoos, and I don't know, maybe elsewhere too. I've never been to a zoo in another country, but you know, there's a lot of flying animals that are the condors. Those ones, like, especially on the West Coast, they're in like almost every zoo. And so, you know, it would be great to have some of these big birds. It would be great to have aquarium-like animals, like fish. Man, I feel like they could do it in this game though, and that's kind of it's kind of the feel like they want to make Planet Zoo 2 because they have this new system and they can do so much more with it, but it's like, it wouldn't be that hard, I don't think, to get... It would literally just have to be an effect, a special effect that has like, they have like the floating dandelion petals or whatever. They have blowing leaves. They have like, all they need is like a school of fish just swimming in a circle or swimming back and forth in a very contained area, and people will work with that. People will love that. They will be able to do everything with that. For real, like, just having that little bit of visual effect makes building aquariums worth it. Because right now, and I've done it before, you spend a lot of time on these like aquarium structures and then there's nothing to put in them. And even I know on the Steam Workshop there's some little creations that people have done, like fish and ducks and these little things that we don't have in the game, but even those are stationary and it just doesn't look as cool, you know? It just doesn't. And I just can't see that it would be too difficult. Especially they have the fish feeding machine for the underwater animals. And so it's like, they're like halfway there already. There's something they can do. I know it. But I don't think they're going to. I doubt it. That would be a crazy final update if they added aquariums, but I can't imagine they're going to. I think they're going to wait for Planet Zoo 2. It'll have more of a water theme, just like Planet Coaster 2. And, you know, the birds, like I said, they're almost assuredly going to do birds. And I have a feeling that since they've worked so well on the pathing system and the guest AI in Planet Coaster 2 in terms of like how they navigate and how they walk and like being able, the reason they kind of you can be so creative with the path is because they've fixed the guest AI not to just walk in a mostly straight path. Like even if it's curved, it's just a singular line, right? And the guests just have to follow the line, and all the guests do the same thing in Planet Zoo. In Planet Coaster 2, they don't do that. They are more dynamic in their like navigation. When the guests navigate places, they can utilize the full path that you put down, no matter how big it is. Not to say that they won't mostly walk it in a similar path because it's the most efficient path, just like humans, you know, real people would also do that. They wouldn't take the far way around if they could help it. But you know, I feel like they already worked on that, and it's gotta be not super complicated to translate that into the animals navigation AI, right? Like, I don't know, I have a feeling that's probably what's gonna happen, but we'll see. I'm sure I'll buy it. I'm sure I'll play it. I just don't know if I'm gonna give up Planet Zoo 1 in the next 2 years, because it feels like I still have a lot to do in this game. Like, the amount of projects that I want to do is unreal, and I don't know if when Planet Zoo 2 comes out, if it's gonna have everything that I need to do these like very intensive projects like this. Because I think half the, you know, I haven't played Planet Coaster 2 since like a couple weeks after its release, and I think for me part of it is there's not enough pieces to quite inspire creativity But that's not the fault of the game, that's the fault of me, because I'm just not thinking of, I'm thinking of it still in terms of what I'm used to in Planet Zoo, which is you have this piece and you have to figure out what to do with it. Whereas in Planet Coaster 2, it's like you have this piece, but it can be 16 different sizes, and each of those sizes can help you do some other random thing, and I just have to be a lot more creative, I guess. It's not the same type of creativity. It's like you have to be like more spatially aware of how something looks when it's small or like it's much larger. And I just feel like I'm not quite there yet. I'm still trying to figure out how to build like that, because I do feel very limited right now. You know, and it's maybe not wholly me, because, you know, they will add DLC, and everybody loves the like, you know, the main reason people buy the DLC is so they can build cooler things. And I don't, yeah. So, I lost track of what I was actually talking about, but I think in conclusion, I'm not quite ready for Planet Zoo 2, but I will admit that there are some systems in Planet Zoo 2 that I feel like are going to be so improved that it's going to be worth a purchase. And I am excited for those. Just because I feel it's gonna fill in some of the missing components in Planet Zoo. It's just a shame that they can't be one game, but I understand. Imagine trying to implement the path system from Planet Coaster 2 into Planet Zoo. That would be a nightmare. The guests would have a horrible time. Here is my Flamingo wall LED sign. As I said in the previous episode, you might remember, or maybe not, I had a tracing paper over my monitor with a flamingo outline. And so I just I didn't want to have the tracing paper on for the whole thing, so I very quickly, I did like a half outline, as you can see, lots of holes, and then I was going to go in individually and get all this filled in and try to make it look cool. I debated filling in the whole body of the flamingo as well, but I didn't think it would look as cool. And the beak is not the best, but I think it's as good as I could possibly get it under the circumstances, because I'm not, you know, some people build amazing things. They use like switch piece to build like these incredible mosaics. I can't do that. Okay, my brain does not work like that. And so, yeah. I can do it with tracing paper, and I can make it look mostly good. It's pretty decent, I would say, is my categorization of that LED. But I think it's unique. Can't imagine many people have done something like that. So I am still very proud of it, even though it looks a little bit funky sometimes. Yeah, I pretty much just finished the Flamingo Bar and Grill, and so now I am working on the staff room, which I put a lot of thought into. I was just trying to see, I want the zoo to sort of be populated by buildings still, to hide all the middles, you know, if there's a lot of staff buildings, then the zoo looks less empty, basically. And so when it's in such a sort of forefront as this staff building is, I wanted to make sure that it actually looked unique and that there was some interesting things to kind of peek around and see, even though I do end up putting a rope to cordon off the guests. They can't enter a certain area, you know, beyond the staff point. I do still, there's some kind of peek through, not a window really, it's like an open window, I guess, into the back. And it's supposed to be like a little zen area for the staff members to kind of unwind, maybe eat lunch. You know, being a zookeeper is not the easiest job. And also working in retail is also not easy. Humans are not easier to deal with than animals sometimes. So I wanted to try to make this staff building, especially again one that's kind of right in the front of the zoo here, look very serene. I haven't really worked on the other staff buildings yet, so I don't know if the other ones are going to look quite as serene as this one, but I did have kind of a wicked time with this waterfall. I had an idea in mind, even had a little reference, and I was trying really hard to make it come to fruition, and it sort of did. Like, I'm happy enough to leave it, but definitely not the best I could do. I just didn't want to spend forever on this waterfall that hardly anyone is ever going to see, because it's not even, you know, I'll have to show it off like specifically in the zoo tour. This is one of those things I was mentioning before where it's like all the random things that you might miss because you don't know to look for them. This is one of those things. This random waterfall in like a dead-end path in the staff center building. And I put a lot of time into it. But yeah, like I said, I leave it, I think it has a certain vibe to it and I don't hate it, so I ended up just leaving it the way it was. And now there's some effect, and I'm sure, I haven't checked, but I imagine the staff in this room are quite happy. Or, you know, the decoration level is high. Hopefully. It's gotta be, right? I put so much stuff in this zoo. So, yeah. Overall, I think this front area turned out well. It turned out how I wanted it to, which is always the biggest thing. Like, it feels good when you kind of walk through the entrance into this zoo, and you see this at the end of the path. It's like all the way at the end you can kind of see this building. And so you know, the entryway is the first impression of the zoo, and so I had to make it very detailed. Later, when you get towards the back of the zoo, you know, I just cover up the habitat edges with trees, and, you know, the land that I'm not using in the zoo is, again, just more trees and bushes, and there's just some, like, open grass near some of the habitats, and it's totally okay, because at that point there's so much to look at. You're not going to be upset by having grass on one side. Like, for instance, the elephant habitat, the Indian elephant habitat, is a very long walk, like, next to the habitat, and it's like it's a thinner habitat, but it's just very long. And so, because as a guest, you're going to be looking at the elephant habitat and not on the other side of the path, I didn't really bother decorating that side. I mean, there is, you know, there is a building later on, and it's not, it's not boring or anything. It's just like, why would I bother decorating it if mostly the guests are going to be looking the other way? Doesn't make any sense. So here I'm actually starting a custom entrance to the deer habitat, and I'm happy to report it is working as I thought it would. I was a little worried because when I first built this, they didn't have the Barnyard DLC out, and when that came out, in order for the guests to interact with the animals, they have to, the habitat has to have a guest gate, like the actual guest gate in the game. But I don't really care for that guest gate. You can't recolor it, and it's just a certain color of brown. And it doesn't match everything, and it especially doesn't match this front area. And also my problem with it is that you can't have a full width path. It's like 5 meters or maybe 6 meters. It's not, I don't think it's 4 meters, but it's small. It's smaller than 8. And I don't like that because it just gets very congested when the guests try to go into a habitat. So I did end up putting it on the other end of this forest walk. You know, you go in one end, you walk around the forest, and then you come out somewhere else. Where you come out is the actual guest gate. But it seems, as far as I can tell, that the guests are using this entrance, and they're able to interact with the animals. I think so anyway. There's a potential they're walking somewhere else to wash their hands, but maybe not. What you're seeing now is me struggling endlessly to get this bar of metal to be in a perfect circle. I usually can do a perfect circle without using the mud wall. I know most people use the mud wall. You can do it without sometimes, but sometimes it acts really weird and it doesn't work. And that's when you have to use the mud wall or the mud column or whatever it is. So yeah, that's what I was doing there. I know it looks wild when I build things like that, but it's the only way to get perfectly circular archways, which is what I needed. I wanted it to be like almost like an old-fashioned gate as you go through. And the rest of the habitat is just very serene once it gets built. And I don't know, we might do the gate in this episode, or I should say not the gate, the fence, which is also, it took me so long. I did about half of it, and then I got so worn out that I just left it, and I left it for like months. I didn't come back to it for a long time. That's why I think you don't see the lynx habitat and this deer area until episode 17, because I couldn't do this part anymore, and I also knew that putting plants in the lynx habitat and this habitat was going to take me a very, very long time. It did. The ground is too uneven for me to like make a group and place the plants like that. So I couldn't do, I had to place all of them individually. And I cut a lot of it out because it was one of those repetitive moments that you do not really need to see in the end. So yeah, oh yeah, here is the potential fence. it's going to be a trip and a half. Because here's the thing I also am bad at doing. I like to have whatever I'm gonna build like half built and then put it throughout. So like for example, I'm using this one limestone piece and I'm dragging it to cover the length of this barrier, right? But I wanted it even at this point to put wooden slats or slates or whatever they're called, like to make a sort of interesting fence pattern. And I don't know why I didn't make the pattern on one of the limestone walls and then copy that pattern on all of the other walls. Instead, what I mean is like copy the pattern with the wall and then drag everything over. So instead I end up dragging this wooden pattern around the fence that I also just dragged around. It's just, why do I make this so hard for myself? I'm not an efficient builder, as you might have been able to tell by the fact that we're on episode 10 and I have one habitat done. So it's gonna be one of those series. But with that, the episode is nearly over. Watch me struggle with this fence for another minute and a half. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a like. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content from me, or check back in this playlist if you just want to see this speed build series. Also, I have a Discord. I keep forgetting to mention it in my videos, but like, if you want to hang out with me and my friends and other members of the community who have joined over the past 8 years that this channel has been going, come join my Discord. It's linked in all the places. But with that, thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, bye!